What is up, guys? Welcome to my first YouTube video. And thank you for tuning in, all right, so today we're going to go over three foundational principles of training, three principles that I think is really important for really everyone to understand. If you're going to go to the gym, if you're going to engage in any form of training, you really should be familiar with these things because they're going to make a lot more clear the decision making or even the rationale behind a lot of the things that we deem normal within training. So maybe you're very new to training. All right, so you're going on the internet, you're reading a lot of surface level stuff, or maybe going on Instagram, checking out some people's workouts, and you're just taking that and running with it at the gym. All right, and that's great that you're getting started. But if you understand these principles, you might understand a lot of the thought process that you're seeing, or you might be able to kind of differentiate between really useful information and not so useful information. So first principle we're going to go over today is going to be progressive overload. So essentially what we're looking at is it's kind of the basis of all training, and it's the progressive increase in stimulus over time. So that stimulus could be in the form of load, it could be in the form of reps, or in the form of sets, even things like velocity, density, total volume, and so on and so forth. All right. So a nice way we can represent that or visualize that, I'm going to steal from my guy, Jamie Pasquin, because he did an awesome job explaining this, is if this square is where we're at right now, right? This is what we can manage. All right. Over time, we can't just stay at this level as we go through. So you can imagine this as something like load. If you're using 50 pounds, every single time you go to the gym, you don't want to be using that same 50 pounds. You want to overload as your body can handle it. So maybe the next time you're at the gym, your body can handle this much load. All right. And then after that, this much. So as your body adapts to this, you start to be able to handle this. So you move on here, all right? As it can handle this, you move on to here, so on and so forth. All right, so pretty straightforward. It's the progressive increase in stimulus over time. So moving on, we got our second principle, which is going to be supercompensation. So supercompensation is essentially the process of recovering from a stressful stimuli to reach a higher baseline. All right, so to visualize that, we'll call this our baseline, right? You're right here at this point, all right? That's kind of representative of where we're at right here. So if you're here, when we introduce a stimulus like weight, all right, you're lifting weights, that's gonna stress the body out, ideally. And you're gonna drop a little bit below that baseline. All right. Now, with the ending of that training session and the beginning of the recovery process, assuming we have adequate recovery, all right, we are going to compensate and not just reach back to baseline, but ideally, we're going to achieve a new baseline. All right, which we can represent right here. So we're going to call this training. All right, and this recovery. All right, and this difference right here, all right, in the new baseline and the previous baseline, all right, is what we call the supercompensation. So so in other words, the adaptations that you're experiencing are going to have a correlation with the amount of stress or stimulus that you're putting on the body, all right, and the recovery that you're experiencing. So, again, overview, we train, we go below baseline, we recover, we come back up, ideally at a higher baseline, assuming the stimulus was strong enough and the recovery was effective enough. All right, so going on to our last principle, we have specificity. All right, so this can be summed up with what is called the SAID principle, which stands for specific adaptations to impose demands. So all that means is that to get a specific adaptation, so adaptation X, all right, we need to apply stimulus X, right? So a good way to imagine this is that if you go for a jog frequently enough, right? You go through this system of progressive overload, training, recovery, and so on. And that stimulus that you're imposing on your body is jogging. You're going to progress, all right, and hit a new baseline in jogging, all right? So getting a little bit more into the weeds, that might look something like increased tissue tolerance. That might be increased aerobic capacity, all right? But the point is that the adaptations you're experiencing, the raised baselines that you're experiencing, and the grounds for progression that you're undergoing are going to be specific to the stress or stimulus of jogging. Where, on a different example, if your goal is to get stupid strong, all right, then the stress that you impose on your body or the training that you undergo needs to be specific to the adaptation of strength. So that's going to be progressing things like load over time. All right. So if we continuously progress on load, if we see this as a representation of weight lifted, all right, in any given movement, so we'll call it a squat. If you come in, you're squatting here, all right, you go under this training stimulus, all right, you recover from that training stimulus, a little bit higher baseline. Now you're here, and the amount of weight that you can squat, and ideally you repeat that process, you get here, and so on and so forth, all right. Again, that is a specific adaptation, all right, to a specific demand. So if you're constantly jogging, all right, and you're wondering why your bench press is not going up, it's because the stimulus that you're imposing on your body is not specific to the goal that you're trying to reach. All right. I hope this was helpful. Again, just a brief overview. These topics can get super, super deep. And while that's awesome, I hope that you guys got the rough overview and you took something away from this. If you have any questions, feel free to comment or reach out to me on social media. And if you found this super helpful, go ahead and spread it with the rest of the world. All right? Doing me a solid. Thank you guys, and peace.